What's up, Shady Gang? Uh, this is part of content season. Why not? Everything that's going to be coming out during the summer is content season. I'm sure you just got done enjoying a wonderful episode between our represent and our end of season report episodes. But we have a treat for you, Shady Gang. First off, I want to say I am here with my show bros, the most dope ones, Sharpie Charlie, Lando. How y'all doing?
It's a beautiful day, man. Happy to be here. Happy to talk some footy with the legend of the city community.
Hey.
Oh man, I've been looking forward to this day for quite some time. It's good to see everybody. Like I always share with everyone, my thoughts, views, opinions, and everything coming out of this wonderful mouth today is brought to you by two Indica pre-rolls and a Corona.
Oh.
Yo, I can't beat that. I wish I could beat that, but I can't beat that.
And this voice that you were hearing, like Sharpie said, we got the legend in the game, the one who is shout out 9320. Ahsan Naeem. Let's just get to it. There's no need to just keep saying other words that hypes the man up. He hypes himself up. So, like, shout out to you. You're dealing with nature trying to take you out, but you're here, you're powering through, handling business. Let's go.
Ready. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go.
Yes, like truly, thank you for coming on again. And I was always worried because the show bros, they were like, good job for getting us on, when you and I did our episode, but you could tell they were just like, nah, you gotta get us in again, so this is a multiple time. Tarek will be here again. So now this is a consistent thing. We're gonna talk plenty of football. No more getting niceties, getting to know each other, because oddly enough, fans didn't want to hear that. They're like, we don't care about who you guys are as people. How do you feel? They're like, talk about football. So
this is not therapy. This is football talk.
Or they want the football therapy. They don't want like actual therapy. They're just men's feelings. Yuck.
men's health awareness month. Who needs that? Football. Football. That is my mental health. Let's go.
Oh man. So actually, this is a great start. We'll start with question number 1. And I believe, Sharpie, that's really from your perspective. So do you want to shoot the question?
Yeah, I'll throw it out there. Yeah, I got you. So, Ahsan, early in the week, De Bruyne had mentioned, speaking in Belgium, that he is, I would say, open to Saudi Arabia, right? Something he's considering. He's talking about it with his family. So my question for you is, should City, like, not push him out, but, sell him, let him go get that incredible end of career, contract, and go get a player like a Musiala or somebody else younger? Or do you think they should say, hey, you are the talisman of the club, you stay, and we will deal with things after Pep leaves?
Fuck no. He needs to stay for the last 12 months of his contract. I just don't think that I don't think it's in his interest to go this summer, and I don't think it's in City's interest to sell him this summer. And also, I think there's a little bit of game. I think there's a little bit of game playing going on. I'm not convinced that he won't sign a new deal at City. I think that, in the end, he's still good enough to play at the top level. He plays for the best team in Europe, and he plays in the hardest league in the world. And he was out for 6 months, and he still topped the assist chart. Like, there's just no way that he needs to take a step down, whether it be to Saudi or to the MLS. So I'm not convinced that he goes, but I wouldn't sell him this summer. No way. No. Like, we don't really need the money. And yeah, like I've always said this, like, probably the biggest advantage to having the owners that we have is that we don't have to sell players that we don't want to sell. Like, it has to make sense for everybody for a player to be sold. And I don't see a world in which it makes sense for City to sell Kev this summer.
So
my only,
I'm sorry. No, you go for it.
I was gonna say my only question is that is there like everybody has a price, right? Is he untouchable? Or if like I know the rumors came out last year that Liverpool turned down over 100
Yeah, but what are you going to do
million
with the
euros.
money? What are you
I'm
going
just
to
saying,
do
like,
with the money?
so
Yeah, but
no
what are you going to do with the
price
money?
is worth it. Okay.
It's the point is, I guess my thing is that like even if somebody gives you £100 million, £200 million for Kevin De Bruyne, what are you going to do with it? Because you can't buy Kevin De Bruyne. There's not a player on the planet that can do what he does right now. And even if you've got him only for one more year, it's better to keep him for one more year than to take the money and then, Lord forbid, Phil Foden gets an injury in October. You're fucked then. Then you have a problem, a big problem. So I don't think we're in a position where we can lose any of the creativity that we have in the team. I think we need more creativity, if I'm honest. I think we need more players who have the quality to pass. Like I feel like we've bought a lot of guys who are like 6 or 7 out of 10 at a lot of things. And actually we need like a couple of guys who have got the magic that Foden and De Bruyne have got.
Yeah. Okay. So how about we'll stay there with the whole keeping KDB. How do we keep KDB for one more year, give him the respect and love, adoration, playing time that he deserves, while also making Phil Foden the man in midfield? How can we do that, though?
Isn't he already the man in midfield?
I think he was in the process of taking it, but I still think like he himself has anointed himself. So like he's shown that he wants to be that, but we still need Pep to acknowledge that. Pep is still kind of like negging him on and making things difficult. So I just worry, and it's not worry, I guess is a hard word. It's just how much can we put Phil and KDB next to each other, especially when Pep has already said he's not the most excited about them playing next to each other because they kind of step on each other's toes offensively, and them two together don't lack the defensive capabilities that he kind of needs from the top two attacking midfield players, I guess. So I just worry about that because
was that comment earlier in the season though?
It was a few months ago. I don't think it was that long ago.
Yeah, but you know what?
I asked the question because it feels like
right.
Phil played himself into a place where even Pep had to say, you know what?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He's too good in that position to take him out, regardless of the drop potentially in that defensive, responsibility.
But did we see him though? He was still playing on the left. He's still playing on the right. He wasn't playing in the midfield. And so that's why I'm saying, like, I still worry that, yes, what Phil did and what Pep does, those are always, and honestly, you just put in any player who is successful, talented, what they do, and then how Pep decides to use them. Especially in this time at City, sometimes it's a little frustrating. You don't see eye to eye, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying any of you guys are wrong, and I completely agree with you. But there's just like a part of me after watching Pep doing what he's doing, after saying what he said. I don't know. It's just
look,
still a little worried.
I don't like not to get too technical about it, but yes. I think that if you look at the run in and the end of the season, Gvardiol kind of owned the left wing, right? Yes. So even if you were playing with Bernardo, KDB, and Foden nominally as a 3 behind Haaland, what actually ended up happening is that Gvardiol became the left winger. Foden and Kev both played in the kind of like almost like those inside channels on the left and the right, yeah. And Bernardo dropped in behind them and added a little bit more protection on the right-hand side. So I don't really I'm not really worried about. Look, I just think that we reached a point at the end of the season or the last 8 weeks of the season where it kind of became Phil Foden's team. He was the most important player in every game, every big game. And I think that when a player anoints themselves in that way, it's very difficult for managers to then go against that. And it's something that I think I understand why Pep talks about Phil the way that he talks about Phil. I think that English players have a problem with discipline, and they have a problem with professionalism, and they have a problem with how do I say this politely? Like, they can become very distracted by their own success. Yeah. And I think with English players, sometimes you need to be a little bit, the leash needs to be shorter, and you need to constantly remind them that everything is not there for them, that they will be taken out of the team, that if they are not at 100% in terms of their mentality, their training, their lifestyle, they won't play. And so I understand why a young kid like Phil, who was as talented as he was at such a young age, why Guardiola's really been a lot harder on him than he has been, for example, on Julian Alvarez, who doesn't possess the talent that Phil possesses, but has found it a lot easier in moments to get in the team and has been given a lot more public encouragement. And I think that's just, it's the nature of the situation of the two players, and how Phil, being a homegrown player, having grown up in Manchester, so you grow up with the distraction of your friends, your peers, everybody in the city knowing who you are, telling you that you're the future. I think actually, in hindsight, Pep's done a good job of shortening that leash with Phil and making him, because now I feel like Foden completely understands what his responsibility will be, not now, but for the next 10 years. Like, he's not a guy who is going to be good for 3 months, shit for 6 months, good for 6 months, shit for 3 months. He's going to be a guy who is going to lead that football club. I think other people disagree with me. I think he'll be the captain of City at some point in the next 2 or 3 years, because you lead by example on the football pitch. You lead by taking responsibility. And Phil, more than any other footballer, except for maybe Rodri, takes responsibility in any game state. Whatever the game state is, whatever the situation is, Phil will step up and take responsibility.
It's so refreshing to hear the point of view and the perspective of how some of these players and the nuances to their story and how they are viewed. Hearing that is something very much to kind of keep in mind as we look forward. At least for me, it's kind of refreshing to hear that from you. One thing I want to talk about, this kind of discussion began with the Kevin De Bruyne and Charlie's question. What I want to get to is what I've often talked about in our previous episodes, is kind of this Bill Belichick Patriot style of getting rid of players a year early as opposed to 2 years too late. And also coming to terms with the aging superstar, being able to kind of deal with the reality of load management for some of these players, that as much as we love them and appreciate what they've done for us, we need to know that they can't necessarily take on the type of work that they were doing in previous years. What are your thoughts on that concept this upcoming season with Kevin De Bruyne? Looking towards what we have with the Euros, personally, I still think Roberto Martinez should be in some sort of prison for the amount of minutes played and given to Kevin. I think the man is an absolute criminal.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I've been calling him a coaching terrorist for years now. Yes. What he did to Kevin De Bruyne was just like, nah, bro.
And he shares my surname, that bastard.
When I see that guy's face, I get angry, bro. And it's very few football people where I see their face and I just get angry. But Martinez, I can't stand him. Look, on the load management thing with Kev, he didn't really get a preseason last summer, right?
Yep.
So he got fit and he started playing again. I don't think anybody, including Kevin, knows where his body is at until he gets through the Euros, has a holiday, and then has a full preseason. The encouraging thing is him saying last week, I think on international duty, that he feels the fittest he's felt since the injury. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe we might be in a weird situation where the Euros are a little bit of a benefit for Kev because he had so long out without any football, right? And I think we saw that at the end of the season where he could be really good and really bad in the same game. And it was almost like finding that consistency and that rhythm and finding your radar, finding your the muscle memory of how hard to kick a ball, to place it where you want to place it. I think all of those things, maybe the Euros will benefit him. I think in general, City have been not perfect, but pretty good at succession planning. But I think that, look, when Yaya Toure was at his peak, the fear was, what's going to happen when Yaya goes? Who's going to be like the talisman? Yeah. I think we've seen throughout the years, Vinny, like David Silva. There's been, in the post-Abu Dhabi era, there's been a succession of players who you're petrified of them leaving because you don't know what happens next. But so far, I think the club have been really good at handling succession planning. And I think with Kev, it's already done because I think Foden is, in the same way that Yaya Toure and Kevin De Bruyne played in the same team for a minute, and then Yaya left, and Kev just became the guy, which just wasn't even a question. I think it'll be the same thing with Phil and with Kev, that Kev, if he leaves next summer, it's not like we need to go and buy Kevin De Bruyne's replacement. He already exists. I don't think that you don't look. Another thing, genuinely, I mean this, right? So, like, nobody watches like Jamal Musiala every week. Nobody watches Florian Wirtz every week. Who we do watch is Phil Foden every week. I'll tell you now, Foden's better than both of those guys. It's just fundamentally on every level, by whatever metric you want to use, Phil Foden is a better footballer than both of those guys. So I'm not really worried about like how do we replace Kev because we've replaced him. Yeah, I think that it's more about balancing a team, and I think that when Kev goes, we will need another creative player because we'll need that balance because Phil can't play every minute of every game. And even if he can, there's going to be games in which you're going to need alternatives to the magic that Phil brings. So I think that the conversation around replacing Kev is kind of a non-conversation. I think it's more about balancing a squad and how we balance the creativity in the team, because I think it's something that we've quietly let slide in the last few years.
Okay, this is a nice. Also, welcome, Tarek. Did you have a question to the Ahsan thing? Do you have a question you want to get in here?
No, I'm good. I'm just riffing off the conversation that happens, so it's all good.
No, of course. I just wanted to make sure. All right, Landell, you said you got some of these secret questions out here. Like, let's get things started.
Well, we'll stick to the football questions because we're having fun with some football. We'll eventually curve. The opening will show itself. I'm not worried about it at all. I'll let the lane form organically, per se. Ahsan, tell me how you really feel about the France national team. I heard the latest epi. My guy, there were some words shared.
Yeah, I don't really like the French national team. I think Didier Deschamps is a clown, right?
That guy got an absolute 9320 pod. Please, our listeners, go listen, go check it out. It's a great podcast, a cornerstone to any true Manchester City fan out there, whether you started loving the club yesterday, whether you started loving the club 20 years ago, and you are catching up with something called social media and networking and podcasting. Please, 9320, a great pillar to our Manchester City fandom and our community. So please, the latest episode gives a great preview to the Euros. Ahsan, my guy,
Yeah.
The French manager, and I'm going to butcher his name, Deschamps. You roasted him.
Bro, he's like the French Gareth Southgate. That guy should not be. That's really like, it's like giving me a Formula One car to drive and going, right, bro, go and win a race. Like, come on, you know. Like everybody else has got to be a shitty driver for me to win that race. No, I don't like the French national team because I can't stand Mbappe. Like I think he's like one of the most. Like I think he comes from in his head, he comes from a previous era of football. I think that we live in an era, I think now, where if you look at the best coaches and the best teams and the best players, they function in service of their team. And Mbappe at no point so far in his career has functioned in service of his team. It's always been about him. And so that makes him really unlikable to me. I don't really care about guys who care about the Ballon d'Or. If you care about the Ballon d'Or, I don't need you in my team. You can go. Like, give me 11 Bernardo Silvas. Give me 11 Kevin De Bruynes. Give me 11 Phil Fodens. I don't need Mbappe, right? I don't need guys like that. So they're terrible to watch as well. Yeah, go on.
Sorry.
Go ahead, T. You there?
Oh no, my internet's messing up. But so I hear what you're saying. Are you saying players that are playing for the Ballon d'Or, trying, their focus is individual stats, whatever. I'm assuming that's what you're meaning there. Because I guess on the opposite side, we have players that are playing in a way that deserves the Ballon d'Or, but haven't won it. Case in point, Haaland last year. So I don't think you're not saying that you're opposed to people winning it. Obviously, you're just saying you would prefer players that are playing more for the team as opposed to playing more individualistic or playing for individual awards as opposed to team success.
Yeah, but also I don't really recognize something like the Ballon d'Or as anything of any relevance to football. Like I understand why from a PR point of view, it's a big deal, right? But it's kind of like, look, like I used to work in the music industry, right? So you win a Grammy, great, you won a Grammy. Yeah, it's great for PR. You might sell a few more records. Does that make you the best? No, it doesn't, because it's a PR game. And there's a million political reasons why people win Grammys. And so for me, the Ballon d'Or is a little bit like that. It's like, okay, well done. You have great PR and you like, so Phil Foden is not in the 20 names for the Ballon d'Or. Jude Bellingham is number 3 or something like that. Nobody can convince me that Jude Bellingham has had a better season than Phil Foden. He just hasn't. I'm sorry, he hasn't. Phil is better footballer, plays better football, it's got better numbers, won 4th Premier League on the bounce. Like, I'm sorry, like it's not in the big games, Phil has turned up. Bellingham has ghosted every big game that he's played outside of the El Clasico, right? So it's a PR thing for me. It doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't say to me you're the best footballer in the world because you win the Ballon d'Or. It says
so entertain
to me,
this. Entertain me. I love this idea, by the way, because this is another refreshing take that I'm hearing. Especially over here, and I agree to a bit of a political contest or a popularity contest. I don't really give much credence or cred to all-star appearances in American sports. I actually argue if you want to have a conversation about whether a player deserves to be in the Hall of Fame or is one better than the other, any player A versus player B, if you list all-star appearances, I immediately don't want to have a conversation with you anymore, because all-star, it's completely the same thing. Popularity contest. Are you familiar with MLB, Major League Baseball, and the Hall of Fame? Kind of the standards as to how it goes about, like,
not really.
Okay,
I'm not gonna lie, not really.
That's fine, but allow me to kind of explain because I want to set this up for you. So there are some not so unwritten rules per se of what a baseball player needs to have. You know, if you have a 300 over batting 300 batting average for I'd say about maybe 7 to 8 seasons, you're pretty much a shoe-in. If you hit 30 homers for 10 plus seasons, you're pretty much a shoe-in. If you get to certain milestones for a pitcher, I'd say about what was it? Tara can help me with this because like during the 90s and early 2000s, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. Once you got to about 2000 to 2500 strikeouts, like you're in. Like it's just a matter of like, you know, first ballot if you're going to get in a few, you know, down the line, whatever. Would you be open to a similar system in football to where you get X amount of goal assist contributions in a season for X amount of seasons? You now have a say in a Hall of Fame type of kind of.
Sure. I mean, I'm okay with that, but I'll bring you back to the point I made at the very beginning, right? That for me, football is a team sport. So you serve in function of your team, and whatever individual numbers you bring is a function of the team functioning. You can be very, very good because the team is set up to make you look very, very good. And so a little bit, I always struggle with the idea of simply going, like just going, right, you got this many numbers, right? Your numbers are here. Because let's be honest, if you play in Man City's team with Pep Guardiola as your coach, your numbers as an attacker are going to be really high because the way you play, the amount of chances that you create, like it's a different thing than playing for West Ham. But you might be playing for West Ham and spend your whole career at West Ham and have like a quarter of the numbers that you would have had at City, but still be a top player. So I think it's really difficult to try and make it about the individual, and I'm really against it. Like, and maybe it's something that I've always been like that, but Guardiola's really against like the idea of the individual in team sport, and I've really taken that to heart. I completely agree with him. Like, I think that, you know, you all serve in function of each other, and your success or your failure can only be collective. Even, you know, Haaland scores all the goals that he scores, not because, well, he is an amazing striker, but he doesn't score all those goals just because he's an amazing striker. No, he scores all those goals because he plays in a team with Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden and all the other guys, and he's coached by Pep Guardiola, who teaches him how to move and where to move and when to move, and all of those things are what help him to achieve his individual success, whatever he feels that may be. But I'm not sure that there's any point in creating an award system to reward him for his numbers when his numbers are a consequence of a finely tuned machine built to get him those numbers. I mean, he should share that with Kevin if he wants to. If he'd have won the Ballon d'Or last year, Haaland, right? He'd have had to go up on that stage and go, Kevin De Bruyne, come up here because I can't have this without you.
He would have said, KDB, you the real MVP.
Yeah, exactly. He is the real. It would have been the real MVP. So, sorry, like that's my personal belief, I guess.
Hey, so then, does that then carry over to? I would assume that then carries over to how you view Jack Grealish and his time at City, right? Because there's a lot of conversation around Jack, and most of it is about G&A or the lack thereof, right? We can point to his ability to carry the ball. We can point to his ability to draw fouls, to keep the ball moving, all of those things. But for a lot of people, it just comes down to numbers. And for whatever reason, Jack has not put up the numbers that maybe folks felt like he should have. So do you take that same approach when you're looking at Jack and his contribution and what he's providing and how you judge his time at City?
No. I think that so you have to a little bit separate what I said previously about the idea of using individual metrics to reward a player when it's part of the team function. I think with Grealish, it's a different conversation. I think that objectively, I don't think he's done enough at City. I think he's had probably 6 good months out of 3 seasons, right? I'm sorry. He's a lovely guy. In England, they love him. I don't think that's enough. He's our record signing, and he is probably on somewhere around the same money as KDB and Haaland. And he's not been good enough. And when you look at somebody like Jeremy coming into the team, and granted, they're very different footballers, but when you look at the way that Doku has come in and been brave. So my theory on Grealish is that sometimes the job is too big. Sometimes the whole thing is just too big. Yeah. It's too structured. It's too like Grealish is kind of a throwback, right? He's the kind of player who probably in the 90s and the early 2000s would have flourished as a kind of maverick attacking player back when systems were not so disciplined and coaching was not so disciplined and lifestyle was not so disciplined. I think at the most modern club in Europe, with the most structured manager on the planet, in the most highly demanding environment that there is in club football, I would say outside of, in fact, it is just the most demanding environment in European football is Manchester City, because you play in the hardest league in the world. You're expected to win it every year. Guardiola's your coach, and there's guys behind you that will fucking kill you for your spot. And I know this because when you listen to the players talk about training, they train like they play, bro. And they know they've got a fight. So they're friends, but when they get out on that training pitch, they're ready to kill each other. And Grealish said it himself when he arrived. It was like, whoa, like this is not Aston Villa. This is these guys are fucking serious. They are here to play, and they are here to play to win everything all the time. And I think that has probably been a little bit difficult for Jack. But having said all of that, if you look at him at his best, he's capable of delivering, both in terms of function for the team and eventually numbers. And if you look at Aston Villa, Jack Grealish, he had some good numbers. So I wish I had a crystal ball and I had the answer for what happens to Grealish. I think this summer is a big sliding doors moment for him. The fact that he's not going to the Euros. So you all know what happened this season at City, right?
I heard, and I shared with them.
Yes.
Disciplinary issues.
Yeah, like so he was left out of squads 2 or 3 times.
Yes.
For disciplinary reasons, right? So, if you're telling me that being the record signing, being on the money that you're on, that you play well for 6 months, you win a treble and you're like, all right, I'm done, cool, let's go to the bar. That's not going to work. Guardiola sold Ronaldinho and Deco. He sold Ronaldinho when he was supposed to be the best footballer on the planet. And he
drumming all night.
Yeah, right? So I think this is now that Jack isn't going to the Euros, I think this is a really big summer for him. He goes one way or the other. Yeah, this is the kind of moment where he goes, all right, I'm going to be the guy.
Should be.
Or he's like, it's cool, fuck it, I've made my money, I've won everything in a season, 2 years, I've won everything I need to win, I've got the medals, I can chill. And if he does that, it's cool, he'll get sold.
It's kind of funny. The newest season of Ted Lasso could potentially be predicting it perfectly, because the character Jamie Tart, very similar to a Jack Grealish type of character, except for his character is actually from Manchester. But, beautiful, long-haired guy who's full of himself. That character locked in over the season. And obviously it was an assistant coach who brought that inspiration out of him. But I'm hopeful. Like, I was watching that and I was like, oh my God, I really hope they're predicting this bullshit, because I need it of Grealish. And it's not necessarily
but
I love
bro,
Gucci Puma.
Don't you think that when you have everything you have at City, to roll like he did this season is really not a good look.
No, it's really like horrendous.
We're like so. I'm going to talk about a lot of things now, because for me this is like a kind of different audience to the UK audience. So look,
spit your shit, eh? Spit your shit, eh? I'm gonna sit back and hear this.
In England, right? Players get treated differently. There are certain footballers that played for Man City, scored 100 goals over their City career, and never got the love or the kind of respect that Grealish gets. Right?
Name names.
So you all know who I'm talking about. It's cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
I'm doing the arms.
And then it's like, okay, so he's great with the kids and he's great with the PR, and that's amazing, but that's not your job. Your job is to get on the pitch and kick a ball and do it to the best of your ability and live your life to ensure that you are a finely tuned machine when it's game day, right? And I have an issue with how little this season anybody has said anything about Grealish. Everybody's like, yeah, it's cool. People are saying like, he struggled in the aftermath of the treble. What the fuck does that even mean? What are you trying to say to me right now? You won the treble and you struggled with it? What did you struggle with? What part of it? You were in the best team in the world and you won everything. What? Surely you come back and you go, yo, we do that again. We do it better. We go again. Look at the guys who came back and went, all right, we go again. We're going to win it 4 now. We're going to do 4. Nobody's ever done that. What does that mean? Yeah. I don't know what that means. And then I feel a way, because then I'm like, we treat players differently sometimes based on the amount of melanin in their skin, and people don't really want to talk about it. So
we're seeing it right now with Saka. We're seeing it right now with Saka. Yeah,
it definitely begins with the media. It definitely begins with the media in England. It's got its own, especially the football media. It's just like,
yeah.
Bro, football itself in England is still mired in racism. Not in the stands, like behind the scenes at football. There is still a culture that exists that is probably not as healthy as we think it is. And listen, and that's not Jack's fault, and I'm not having a go at, in that sense. Like, that's not me like critiquing Jack. That's not his fault. He is, by all accounts, a super lovely guy. He was brilliant in the run-in last season. You can't take those things away from him. He was key in a treble-winning team. But standards are standards, and you have to have consistency to how you apply those standards. You can't say it's all right for this dude to slack, but this dude has got to perform every week, otherwise I'm going to kill him.
Sharpie?
So I just want to say the names because he didn't. Look at Raheem Sterling, who is the top 5 City scorer of all time. Countless productive seasons, 30 plus goals multiple times, numerous assists. I fell in love with City in the Sané, Sterling, Aguero, as that trio. And then when you take it to another player who's often overlooked but left last year, Riyad Mahrez, another melanated player who's incredibly productive, incredibly skilled, one of the best right wingers in Premier League history. Always showed up for City in the moments. Not always, nothing's 100%, but he was there.
Nah, bro,
you could depend on him.
You look at
I'm just saying, like, I didn't want to say like 100%, but
you look at Mahrez's heavy goals, right? You look at a collection of Riyad Mahrez's heavy goals, bro, heavy performances. So not like the fourth goal in a 4-0 rout. I'm talking about the shit that matters. Yeah, Riyad had a long list of heavy goals.
Oh, Sharpie King Mahrez. We called him King Mahrez for
because
like 2 years.
I loved him, like
specifically because of Sharpie.
Yeah, and I want to get to this point, right? And my point is this: that's why this season, once Doku came onto the scene and was instantly like instant coffee, right? Boom, you see it, this is different than Grealish. He gives you more than Grealish on the pitch this year. I feel like honestly, it just makes me think Jack Grealish he's always been seen as something he isn't. He's never been a huge goal scorer. Like that was never his role at Villa. He was a creative player. Like he scored some goals, but he wasn't giving you 18, 15 goals a season. That wasn't him. And so I don't expect him to be a goal scorer. But like the things you're saying, Ahsan, if Raheem Sterling, Mahrez, Doku, if they have any drop off in professionalism, because that's what it is, they are getting creamed in the back.
They don't.
Come on now, let's be real.
like Sterling was, by all accounts, a fantastic trainer, uber professional, worked really hard, but he liked to play. And if he didn't get picked, it was a little bit difficult to handle, right? His professionalism was never questioned, but people describe Raheem Sterling as a frustrating footballer. People described Riyad Mahrez as a frustrating footballer. I guarantee you, very few people are describing Grealish as a frustrating footballer.
Yeah.
And I just think he's as good as those other players. That's my point. He's just not that good. His apex is not the apex of a Sterling, a Mahrez, a Sané, a Doku. He's just, for me, his best is like an 8. Whereas like those other guys, I've seen 9s and 10s from them. Jack doesn't do it for me on the pitch in that way. Is he a piece of a puzzle? Yes. But is he going to be like the final stamp? Like you said, it gets the G and A tier? No, that's not his role. He's like a Kovacic on the wing. So I don't expect Kova to score goals. But yeah.
So do we ever? Yeah, you know what I said about Kova. Do we ever get? Do we ever get Jack playing more as an 8? Because then he can still use his ability to carry the ball. He's playing more centrally. He's a little bit more threatening in a more central place or central position on the pitch, as opposed to playing on that winger where he's really not. He's not producing like what we would expect.
I don't think so. I think we're maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, maybe in preseason they'll have a look at that. But actually, we're probably going to buy a centre midfield player, right? So I think we're a little bit overloaded we're talking about how do we fit Phil and Kev in the same team. Within that conversation, Grealish ain't getting in there. I'm sorry. It's not that he's not Kovacic, right? So he can't do what Kova does. He's not Bernardo. He can't do what Bernardo does. He's not Phil. He can't do what Phil does. He's not Kev. He can't do what Kev does. He's got a skill set, which means, sure, on paper, you could play him centrally in certain games and he might do well. But who are you taking out? You're taking out a better player to allow him to play that role. And that's not what he was bought to do. He was obviously bought to be the left-sided attacker. They basically sold Raheem Sterling to buy Jack Grealish, right? That was the succession plan.
Okay, so I I want to. We'll get out on this last topic. I think we did a fantastic, and honestly, there's still questions we didn't even touch. So this makes me excited for the next episode that we do because some of the stuff will stay. I want to end with Arsenal and what's going on with them because the easiest question is, will Arsenal win next season? And if not, how many more years can Arteta be at the helm at Arsenal without winning a Premier League? And obviously, this is your opinion.
Again, like it's so only one team can win the league every year, right? And I don't think that whilst Guardiola's in the league, I don't think it's fair to say I don't think you can judge any other manager on the basis of titles whilst Pep's in the league. So I think they'll run us close again next season. I'm sure of that. I think they'll be the nearest rival. But I'm not really... I think Arteta's at the beginning of his coaching arc at Arsenal, whereas with Pep and his contract running down, and there being kind of uncertainty around what happens, I don't think Arteta's under any real pressure. I mean, look, they got 89 points, bro. If you get 89 points, it's cool. Some years you win the league, some years you won't win the league. But you got 89 points. And the other thing, you have to respect how young that team is. It's a really young team. It's not like a little bit young. It's like a baby team in many respects. And he made it younger. So that is also something that you have to... I like Arteta. I think I don't know him, but like as a coach, what he's done with Arsenal, got a lot of respect for him. I think he's done an amazing job. That's my overall take on Arteta and Arsenal.
Okay, I appreciate it because whereas we're City, so Liverpool or United should be our rival. Meh. And I know Tarek, his heat is towards Liverpool, and honestly, just a lot of my vitriol, since I can't aim it at Luton Town anymore, it's going towards Arsenal. So,
and that is 9. One more would be the 10th time that we say the A word, which is Arsenal. That makes it 10. In what fucking world? 4 fucking prems, and we get a cornerstone to our fandom, Ahsan, and we want to waste over 90 seconds on a fucking red club from London.
Because I was hoping...
Bro, he makes a really good point. That's a really good point that Lando just made.
Like, I think he does this all the time. He does this all the time. This is the brand. I was hoping Ahsan was going to help me and dunk on an Arsenal, but instead he brought logic.
That's 11. I'm about to mute. I don't know what we're doing here.
You asked me, you're not gonna let me answer? Come on, my guy. I'm trying to say what I thought Ahsan was gonna help me dunk on him. He didn't. He brought levity and understanding. So I'm saying, all right, I'm gonna back off him. I won't be so hot towards Arteta. I won't be so interested to the Super Soaker team. There we go. That's what we'll call them, the Super Soaker.
I like that.
Because they're not gunners, it's Super Soakers. There's only so much you can hold in there.
I thought that's where you were going with that. I like that.
Oh, yeah, that's dope.
I was going to say, I love Ahsan's take on Arsenal. And because for me, it balanced out the way that we disagree about Mbappe. Like, I couldn't get it in earlier. I won't go back to it. But I love that we can agree and disagree. This is the beauty of football banter, I love it.
Okay.
Ahsan, can you entertain this quick question for me, please?
Go for it.
Where did you get the brilliance to write The Baker's Son?
Have you read it?
I know a little bit about the storyline, and I know about where it's trying to go, and I'm just curious, if there's a muse to that? Is there something that you kind of...
Yeah, it's a true story. So actually, it's a true story. I read a newspaper article about this baker in Antwerp who died, and when they went into his bakery after his died in the basement, they found basically that he was a cocaine trafficker and that he had all of all of his coke stashed in the basement of his bakery. And I was like, wow, that's a great story. It's really wild. So I'm going to turn that into something.
Would you ever consider writing about sport?
I did, actually. I wrote a show called The Fix last year, which I still hope that one day somebody will buy it and make it, which is basically about a referee that makes a bad decision whilst in Southeast Asia and ends up getting blackmailed by a load of gangsters and has to start doing spot fixing in league matches. I think it's really it's one of my favorite things that I've written.
That sounds so dope. Like that, I'm just thinking Tim Donahue for American sports fans and NBA.
Wait, I was gonna say that.
Exactly.
That sounds so dope.
Exactly. So, but like the entertainment business, they're like, yeah, people don't really watch shows about sport. You can't really make drama about sport, apparently.
I don't know. They tried. ESPN tried a show a few times. They actually did one to where it was about American football, but then they got down to like the concussion conversation and it got a little political. And then that's when ESPN decided to bail because, mainstream media and talking about something that one of its main partners is anti.
Well, yeah, I think that's one of the problems with The Fix is that I don't think that anybody wants to really get into a conversation about the idea of referees being corruptible.
Yes.
Yeah. But where there's money, there is money, right? You know what I mean? Like where there's money, and so I'm one day I'm hopeful that one day somebody will want to make that show.
Okay.
Sopranos or The Wire?
Oh, The Wire. For sure. That's not really I love The Sopranos, but that's not really you can't really no. It's The Wire.
Fair.
Oh, okay. Well, this is nice. This is great. Like I said, we got plenty to talk about for the next time we have you on. Before we get you out of here, I mean, Lando kind of touched it, but for the people who don't know, give us a little bit about 9320 and then maybe what was the last episode that you guys released.
So now, when I started 9320, it was 2015. Yeah. And there wasn't really there was only one Man City podcast in the space. And I didn't really feel as though what I wanted to hear was reflected in the space. And so my wife was like, you should start a podcast. So I did. And we've grown because we've been around for so long. And I have a amazing team of people. Like we have an amazing group of contributors who make it dope. And if you go to our Twitter feed, you can find loads of content there. If you go to our SoundCloud, you can find loads of content there. We have two different platforms. We have the free platform, and on the free platform, we do like 2 podcasts a week. And then we have the 9320 player, which costs like £5. So I don't know what that is in dollars, like $7 a month or something like that. And we do like probably like about 5-6 hours a week of podcasts, and we cover City and we cover the Premier League, and we've tried to create an alternative to the mainstream media for City fans who are into football. So we try and cover a lot of City stuff, but we try and cover some stuff that isn't City. There's always a little bit of a City slant to everything that we do. It's I feel very lucky because I started with like a dream and Howard Hockin. It was me and Howard, and we were like, let's do this and see what happens. And we never thought that we would be here. Like we never thought that 7-8 years later we'd still be going. Never mind, like we feel like a lot of people kind of look at us as like old timers, right? And it's true, we're old, right? We're old in age, and we're kind of old timers in the space, and that's kind of cool. Like it's funny to be an old timer in a very crowded space now. There's a lot of city content. There's a lot of great city content out there, but there's just a lot of content in general. I think what makes us different, if I can say this, is that if you listen to our podcast, I would hope that it's like sitting in a pub after a game with 4 or 5 guys and just having a conversation about what you've just seen. It's honest. It can be emotional. We try and have a little bit of levity, but in the end, we're supporters, so emotion will take over. We disagree a lot on a lot of things, and that keeps it spicy. So yeah, check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah, they are. They're my favorite pod, obviously next to ours. But there were a set of people that I listened to before I created SOB, and it was like you, Shirley's Plantain. It was just a lot of people who I feel are honest, or aren't as worried about making sure certain connections are protected. So and I'm not saying that you guys just say whatever and you go at people, but you give your honest opinion instead of just like keeping everything sugar-coated.
You got to have a balance between. You got to remember that you have a responsibility to the idea of being a supporter, but at the same time, you have a responsibility to be honest. I think one of the things that I pride myself on is we don't have any editorial control beyond don't be racist, don't be homophobic, don't be a dickhead. But when it comes to football, you can hold whatever opinion you want. It's cool. Like the space is there for you to express your opinion on football. And I think that's important. I think that's probably, I think if people think that we're good or people think that we're successful, it's because we have a real balance. We're not a podcast that has one opinion about everything. We don't have 9 guys who all agree on Jack Grealish, right? Like I hold strong opinions on Jack. Other people hold strong opinions on the other side. Mm-hmm. It's the only way that you can have an interesting conversation is if you have people who can be honest and bring their opinions and discuss them.
Love it. Well, Shady Gang, we will be back in a few days. It's content season. We have an episode dropping every 48 hours, every other day for you.
Damn.
So honestly, I have no idea when we're gonna fit this episode in. So it's gonna be a good time. So basically, there's gonna be a point where we're gonna have 3 episodes in 3 days because I got to fit this in. And then soon, we're recording with Mariam Karabi from She Scores Bangers, and then later in this week, we'll be recording with Zeets. Fantastic, amazing, exciting things coming out for you. I don't even know why I'm saying this now because I don't even know when this episode's going to come out. So like, it doesn't really matter when. But oh well,
it might never come out. It might just be an experience that we have.
It's coming out.
I want to be able to roll. I want to roll these episodes out a little bit better than the content season. So that's why I'm more so saying this. But Shady Gang,
I can see this. I just got to say, I can see the agenda here, and there's so much shit that we didn't cover that we almost need a part 2 to this podcast just to deal with 115, to deal with Pep's succession planning, all that stuff, which I love to talk about. So we got to do a part 2 soon.
Yeah, we'll have you back. And until then, the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady Gang.